Hello, my name is Tony Berard. I haven't done a video in about a week. I'm waiting for my next game to come in. I ordered a copy of Fighting Chess 10. Is that what it's called? No, it's called Dice Chess 10. That's what it's called, Dice Chess 10. It has a new piece called the Immortal Guardian. So I'm really looking forward to that. But in the meantime, I'm going to talk about a event I processed recently, a couple days ago, with my rating system. And I've done some fireside chats talking about my rating system a little bit. But here's my rating system in actual use. This is my first video for discussing my rating system. So I have here a PDF file that I opened up on my Google Drive account. And I have the settings set to this for public. So you could find this, I'm sure. I have it posted on my Facebook page. There's my name, Tony Berard, if you want to friend me. And then you'll see it there. But anyway, this is the Tata Steel Masters, an analysis of Caruana's performance. Much talk has been given recently. This is just me writing this. Much talk has been given recently to Ding Liren as the next challenger to Carlsen. He has stopped all tournaments to train for the Candidates Tournament in April. But then, Caruana won the Tata Steel Masters by a 2-point margin of victory over Magnus Carlsen. This was a considered I got a typo there. This was considered as a statement by Fabi that it was actually him who should be considered as the player who was the favorite in the Candidates Tournament. Fabi got a 10 out of 13. Is this a historically great performance? Here is the analysis from the perspective of my rating system, the PRA, which stands for Performance Rating Algorithm. Okay. I guess this is some highlights. Some highlights from the analysis are that Caruana had a dominating performance worthy of any world champion. Obviously, that's great. He did do awesome. And Carlsen was expected to win this tournament according to my choke test, which is just a statistical test of positive linear correlation. Anyway, the choke test declares that Carlsen choked. I have seen stuff in the past, of chokes. And different ones, they have their criteria for what constitutes a choke. But for me, I use as I said, a test of positive linear correlation. My rating system provides a scatter plot. Actually, I'll show it to you. It's at the bottom of this document right here. This is the Tata Steel Masters 2020. So on this axis, I didn't label my axis. That's awesome. This is the P0 scores from the rating system. And these are the initial ratings. In this case, they're ELO ratings. And I put the x-axis to cross through at the centroid of the data. Centroid is the balancing point. So if these were all equal weights on a piece of paper, like say 1 gram weights, or maybe a piece of paneling or something that can hold them, and you were to hold it level with your fingertip right there, it would balance. That's what a centroid is. And so there's no data points that are too far over here, or over here, or over here that would cause it to tip one way or the other in a 3D balance. So that's what a centroid is. And so these are so Carlsen, he was the highest rated player, and look how far away he is from the this one might have been Van Four East. He was pretty far too, but look how far away Carlsen is. In math, we measure the distance vertically from a data point to the regression line. So Caruana, he was right there on as he was expected to do. But Carlson did not do that well. 2-point margin of victory. And so the way these work is if you take a player's point and you move it vertically or horizontally to the regression line, or as I call it in my rating system, the performance rating line, and then you go horizontally across, you can see what that player's performance was in terms of a rating. I have since found that the ELO system calculates a performance rating differently than this, so this really is a new concept. Well, it's not a new concept statistically. This concept's been used for forever. Well, not forever, obviously. Statistics is not a forever old branch of mathematics, but you get what I'm saying. It's been around a while to go down to the prediction line. The regression line is a prediction line, and come across here. I'm using this idea to calibrate the ratings. So, there's that. Now, so based on this, you could see that even though Carlson is higher rated, if you bring down to the line and go across versus Caruana going across, you can see Caruana scored from here down to about here better than Carlson. So that's saying a lot. All right, what am I saying here? Oh, this was the choke test. So you can see this is the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis. Rho less than or equal to 0, rho greater than 0. So this is a right-tailed test. This is all standard stuff from statistics. But these values are gotten from my rating system. That's the big difference here. So we calculate a test statistic. I had the program do that. And I looked up a critical value. And I had I used Microsoft Excel, I believe, to give me a big list of data points for all the critical values, up to like 5,000 players in a tournament. And so all it has to do is look up how many players were in the tournament, and it gives me a critical value. So that's kind of nice. This was looked up. And here's the degrees of freedom. And if your test statistic in this type of test is greater than your critical value, it fails. And what does it fail? It fails the null hypothesis. So no positive linear correlation failed. That means there was a positive linear correlation. So because there's a positive linear correlation, this high rating of Carlson, he's expected to do what his rating suggests. And so he should be over here. And then when you come down to the regression line and go across, it's right there where his is. Fabi played right to his expectation. Carlson did not. And so because of that, this choke test is saying that Carlson choked. And these other players, because they're where they're at, none of them are as high as these other players. So like if you go to here, this player did significantly better. So did this player. I think that one's Van Voorhees. And so you can get a lot of information from a graph like this, which is why my rating system is better than the ELO rating system. So what else am I saying here? Well, I said a lot. So this is the residuals. So remember me saying Carlson was really far away from his data point? So he's almost 100 points away. Van Voorhees was 108 points away. These two guys alone are pretty far away, you know, and they should have caused the ratings goodness of fit test to fail. But they didn't, because I show it right here. This is the ratings goodness of fit test using chi-squared. I never did take this out, but this is I was trying to find where E should be, and E is a letter in the test statistic equation. E is in the denominator. I wound up settling on 2500 for my value of E, and you can see that it's in this interval, but I never did take that out. But anyway, here's the critical value, and here's the test statistic, 12. So this test statistic is less than this. So we do not fail the null hypothesis, which is here. The players all performed to expectation. So they all performed to expectation. So that test and the test of linear correlation both say that the players performed according to expectation. So both those tests say that Carlsen should have won, and he didn't, because he was pretty far away from where he was supposed to be, 100 points lower just about in his rating. But because the test did pass, as a ratings administrator, I would not adjust Carlsen's rating, and I would not adjust Van Forest's rating, Van Forest, because I don't have enough evidence against the null hypothesis to say I should move these guys. So the rating system will move them. But look at his performance rating, 2752. It's not too far from Carlsen's. Dubov also performed at 2752. So I would expect Dubov in time to become a 2700 player. Duda already is. So, yeah, so Dubov, he performed at 2752, and so did Van Forest. So both these guys should become 2700 players before too long, because they performed as well as these other 2700 players. Until you get down to here, Kovalev. He's a 2600 player, and it's showing that he performed at 2683. So, but he may become a 2700 player. I mean, he was invited to this tournament. I think they said he won last year's Challenger section, so he was entitled to play with the big boys this time. And he came in last place, but, you know, this was his first time with the big boys. So he may still be a growing player, but my rating system is not totally sold on him in terms of how he does against these guys. So there's that. These are the G scores. You can see Caruana got a 233.92, basically a 234. And Carlsen did make the greatness list. He just barely broke 100. It takes 100 to break the greatness list, and he just barely did it. So, and this was the tournament strength. So down here near the bottom, I show here. This is Feby's. What am I saying here? Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm just saying what I just said, but here's the list now. And so I'm seeing how Caruana did historically, because these are all the people that I have measured so far with my rating system that are in the 230s. And the only one I hadn't heard of, I didn't remember this guy's name, Sorokin, at Rio de Janeiro in 1991. He had a G-score of 230.12. I had to look this guy up. I'm like, who is he? So he scored a 11.5 out of 12. And Vladimir Kramnik was in that tournament. And it was in, what year was this? 1991. So Kramnik still had a few years to go before he became the champion. But still, Kramnik was a very strong player. Kramnik had 11 out of 12, I think. And Sorokin had 11.5 out of 12. They didn't play each other in this tournament, but they played a lot of other players in common. And Sorokin did better against them than Vladimir Kramnik did. So, and plus, well, what I'm saying up here is that they weren't as highly rated, but he outscored Kramnik. Indeed, he only got a single draw out of 12 games. His performance can clearly be spoken of on a par with Fabi's because his performance against a weaker field had to be a higher percentage, which it was. Sometimes I feel I have to defend my rating system. Because who's heard of Sorokin? And Fabi just had an outstanding tournament. He dominated the field, which included Anand, the former world champion, and Carlsen, the current world champion. And Fabi won it by a 2-point margin of victory. Is that the best in history? Well, no, it isn't. You can see that these are the other tournaments that my rating system said where performance is very near it. And so Janowski was a great player in Hanover 1902. I didn't look this one up. I just know Janowski's a great player. He had a lot of great tournament performances. He didn't do so well in matches against Lasker, but his tournament record was pretty good. Botvinnik, world champion. Tal, world champion. Nimzovich. He was just below Alekhine, Dresden 1926 was his best tournament, Nimzovich's, and he got over a 300 in it. But in this particular tournament, Frankfurt 1930, he had a G-score of 237.95, which is saying he did better against the elite field than Caruana did just now. Because Caruana didn't rout the field. He got a 10 out of 13, which means he lost 3 full points through 6 draws. Fischer at Zagreb 1970. That was right before Fischer became the world champion. And look at that, 237. So Caruana, where is he at? Right here, 233. He's right there with Fischer. Oh, that's Lasker. Fischer. Lasker, Nuremberg 1896. That was a great tournament of Lasker's. And my rating system saying that he got a 237. Tal, had many runaway tournaments, but Caruana's performance is right there with his. And you can see in the list here how far down he is. These are this is the 133rd best performance, which means there's a whole lot above 124 that I didn't put in here. I just put the ones near where my rating system said that Carlsen was close to. Lombardi, this was a rout by Lombardi at the World Junior Championship. And it's my rating system saying a little bit better. I had to do a lot of work. There's some unknown with this, but I got rating data as best I could from Chess Metrics. And some other players I had to look pretty far into the Chess Metrics data set to get ratings for them, because the actual World Junior Championship that Lombardi played in, there was very little information. But I think I did a good job, and I was able to get Lombardi's G-score, which was pretty amazing. Of course, Lombardi never went on to win the World Championship. I think he won the U.S. Open, or the U.S. Championship once or twice, though. I'd have to look that up, but he was certainly a great player. So, Karasek, he was great. I think he died young. As you see, Berlin, 1897. As you see, my rating system doesn't forget anything. I keep, whenever I do a tournament, I keep a database of all these tournaments so that my program can rank them and put them in order for me. And so it remembers Karasek way back in the day. And Caruana did a little bit better than Karasek. They're both in the 233s, 0.13 and 0.92. So they're not even 1 full point difference. 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 4 guys that are in the 233rd point. Kashdan, He never became champion. Hastings 1931. Great game, great tournament. No doubt about it. Kasparov, he was a world champion. Some people say he's the best of all time ever, but my rating system doesn't say so. And you can see how thorough it is. It doesn't forget anything. Well, I think I did the tournaments here too. Yeah, here's a list of tournaments of similar strengths. And so you might say that, well, this was the strongest tournament ever. Well, no, it wasn't. It's, where are we at? Here. No. Tata Steel, Tata Steel. I don't even see it. Maybe it's on the next page. Oh, I put more in there. 2000 Tata Steel. Right here. Tata Steel 20. So it was the 63rd strongest tournament according to the ones I have done. And it had a strength of 89. And I surrounded it by a few. Up here to the 43rd strength. Bobby Fischer was in this one. Alekhine Memorial. Well, obviously Alekhine wasn't in that, but that was a very strong tournament. London Classic. They're one of the strongest tournaments in the world all the time. World Grand Prix, I guess. I don't know. Kasparov versus Lev Shaxis. So because Kasparov was in that, made it a strong match. And Lev Shaxis, I don't know how you say his name, but he was obviously not a weak player. Steinitz, Martinez, 1883. Look how far back my rating system. You know, I've done tournaments really far back in the past and matches that were really strong routes and whatever. Steinitz really did awesome against Martinez, and this tournament had this match had a strength of 91. So Capablanca Caustic, he was not a pushover, but Capablanca routed that guy. I remember that one. Elista, I think these were some qualifying tournaments back in 2008. But, you know, one of the things about the ELO rating system is it does allow the best players to be put together. A tournament like Elista, you know, it wasn't possible back in the day, Lasker's day, like, let's say. And so these players were invited, you know, to come, but they weren't always the strongest players, you know. So, but with the modern rating system, we can get all the strongest players. Players that do get the elite level ratings, they've earned it, you know. They need to be in these high level tournaments. That is one thing. Nalchik was another one. Elista, Nalchik. Look at that, Baden Baden, 1870. That was a strong tournament. That might have been won by Adolf Anderson. Sochi, that's another one. Nalchik, Elista, and Sochi. I remember those. I had done them all as a group. 90.187. So you could see Caruana, he did really awesomely. There's no doubt about it. The only other thing I might say is I had a, let me see if I can find it. It's my PRA. This is my Google Drive. So PRA tournament. No, here. This is 81 pages, but I have something in here I want to show you. You can see I did a lot of work with this paper. I thought this paper here was going to win me the Breakthrough Prize because it's an awesome paper, truly. And yet I couldn't even get into the competition. I've talked about that before. There's the E. I found it to be 2,500. I talked about that a minute ago. See, I did a bunch of these tournaments and I settled on 2,500 right there. So now I'm trying to find. I have a little ranking for G scores, where a G score comes in. Excuse me. Did the World Cup. Look at all those large residuals. This is why a knockout tournament isn't good. Look at some of these residuals. More than 100, more than 100, more than 100. More than 100 here, more than 100. Look at that. Look at that one right there. 237 points away. That should never happen. 268 points away. That should never happen. So, then I got some G scores. Look at this. Kramnik, he went on to become champion in the World Cup 2013. He won it, and he got a G score of 212. Fabi just got a 233. So I mean, it's not easy to get these huge G scores. What's going on? G scores. All right, I'm talking about G scores now. So it's somewhere in here. Case studies. I'm near the end of the paper. I missed it. What I was looking for. The greatness formula. Well, I'm sure I put it in here. Right here's the chapter for it. Maybe I didn't put it in here. Guess I didn't put it in here. Must be in another paper. Oh well. Well, that's all I have time for. So, Caruana's performance was dominating. His score was worthy of any world champion, so he's in that range. So he certainly can be expected to be one of the players who can win the candidates, and he can take down Carlsen. Carlsen sometimes, actually I've only had him a couple of times up in the 200s. So, I mean, Carlsen, he wins a lot, but he doesn't dominate. So, there's my final analysis. This is Tony Berard signing off.